Louder the better. Well, I am super pumped to have a friend of mine. Honestly, it's so cool how we met. My friend Cass back there is the reason, but it was really funny. I was actually just looking for a new roof, and then I ended up with solar panels on my house. So, but I actually was very interested, and I've gotten to know Austin for a while, and his company, his roofing company, and also solar company here in Boise. They've been working really hard, and they're really doing some great stuff here in our community. And I heard if you're interested in solar, seriously, stick around. I think there's a lot to learn here. Again, I'm Sean Wakely. I'm the director of Hackfort. If you don't know who I am, thank you guys again for coming out. And Austin, I'm just going to turn it over to you, man. Right. And we're going to have Q&A, time for Q&A. My buddy Dylan here will be passing this around. We need to get your voice because we're recording this, so we'll make sure we get it all.
Is it going? Okay, there we go. All right. Hey, everybody. My name's... Oh, what are we doing? I got the clicker on my phone. We're good. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, thanks for the introduction, Sean. My name is Austin. I'm one of the owners of Recon Roofing and Solar here in Boise. We're a veteran-owned small company. Growing pretty fast, though, so I can't complain. It's been great. So for the most part, kind of an Idaho guy, been here for about 10 years, been back and forth, was in the military for a while and then came back and was in the roofing industry before college, before then I got back into roofing after the military. And then now I'm kind of head first into solar now. And Andrew focuses a little bit more in roofing, but, yeah, went to Idaho State University, went in the military, came back, opened up a roofing company with this guy, and then we just jumped into solar it's been about 2 years, and it's been great. It's been unbelievable, and might want to introduce yourself, Andrew.
So my name is Andrew. Grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada. Started doing roofs when I was like, I don't think that's working. My name is Andrew Schleissner. I'm the other owner of Recon Roofing and Solar. Grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada, started doing roofs with my uncle when I was 15 years old. So learned a lot about roofing when I was very young. Got into it, went to college, played baseball over in Montana, and had a blast doing that. And then moved over here to Boise about 2 years ago and started this roofing company here with Austin. And I was doing roofs back when I was in college over the summers, all that stuff. And then we got presented the opportunity of solar, and it kind of changed our whole business. And we were kind of like, I don't know about solar when we first started. And then here we are, and we're kind of geeked out about it. So I'll pass it back over to Austin here.
Yeah. And to just jump into this, we're going to just brush the surface with solar in general. I mean, there's so many questions going around about solar and renewable energy, and you hear so many things. And I just kind of want to brush the surface with kind of the net zero goals for Idaho, the net zero goals for our country, and kind of just more in depth on some maybe simple solar questions some people might have. So we'll just jump into it. God, I don't like this microphone. Let me try that one. It's not, this one's a little louder. It's a little louder. Hey, it's all good.
Hello. Oh, there we go.
So let me back up a little. So just an introduction into kind of solar energy. I'll break this down, just simple definitions and how things work. So definition of solar energy and how it works, the benefits of switching to solar power for energy requirements, current energy generation trends in the U.S. and their impact on the environment. So, to make a long story short, I try to summarize this down, but solar energy is the radiant energy emitted by the sun, which is converted to thermal or electrical energy using photovoltaic panels. The conversion process involves the absorption of sunlight by solar panels, which generates the direct current of electricity. This electricity is then converted into an alternating current, which powers our homes, powers our devices, so on and so on. So most of that conversion actually happens in the inverter that is connected into your house, and that most of the time we try to put it in the garage, but sometimes it ends up outside, but for the most part. But the benefits of switching to solar power for energy requirements. I'll kind of jump into this. You guys can read this. I don't need to, read this off. But cost savings. Solar used to be expensive. It used to be kind of a rich man's thing. The price per watt was outrageous back in the day. Things have changed tremendously in the last, I would say, 20 years, especially in the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. The government's doing tax incentives. We've all heard about it. I'll talk about that later because that's another thing to talk about. But tax incentives, every state's different, but federally there's a lot of incentives going on. But from a cost saving standpoint, you're going to be saving money with solar, and that's a great thing to do. But we're going to try to touch base on the net zero aspect too. Eventually, we want to erase our carbon footprint on this planet and get towards a net zero approach. And what I mean by net zero is 100% renewable energy. That's the goal. Idaho actually has a goal for 2045. As a country, we're around 2050. We'll see how it goes. We're making progress. Idaho's making tremendous progress as well, but we're going to have to be a team as a country, as a state, as an individual to take part in our net zero goals. Going into the environmental benefits, solar energy is clean. It's a renewable energy source that doesn't produce any greenhouse gas emissions, which contribute to climate change. I'm going to be honest, I wasn't a big climate change guy. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, grew up kind of in a hard style family. We didn't focus in that. And then my eyes kind of opened up when I got into the solar industry and started doing my own research. And it is a problem. So solar, wind, hydro, it really is the future. There's more people moving to our state here in Idaho. There's more people coming to the United States. Our grid can't handle it. There's too much carbon in the air. We're going to have to find a way to accomplish fixing that issue. And that's going to be net zero. And I'll get more into kind of what net zero means here in the next couple slides. That kind of relates into energy independence. By generating your own electricity using solar panels, you can become less reliant on traditional utility companies and have more control over your energy use. It's pretty easy to understand. You got solar on your house. Most of the time, electricity is provided by a outsourced electric company coming into your home and providing you power. Well, when you're generating electricity on site, it's a little bit different. It's taking out that whole process of, I wish I actually put the diagram on there, but we live on an electrical highway, and it just has to go through so many stages for a house to receive electricity. And you're generating your own power on site. It takes away all those issues and accomplishes the net zero goals, which I'm going to go into here shortly. Also, some people like to, we tell people about this, but it's an increased property value too. A lot of people get a lot out of solar. Right now in the United States, Zillow has a lot of houses, on average about 4% of a property value added to your property with solar. So it's pretty cool. I'll add that in there, but what else would you like to add to this slide, Andrew?
I'd say you hit just about everything. As far as the cost savings go, really all we're doing is we're putting some panels on a roof. We're just getting you a lower price per kilowatt hour. So, right now here in Idaho, luckily our utility cost is still relatively low compared to the rest of the nation, but we are one of the fastest growing as far as rate increase goes. So what you're doing is you're locking in your price of gas right now, essentially. It's like if you gave me a card back in when I was 2012, yeah, I'd be pretty happy with those gas prices now. So that's really what we're doing. We're just kind of cutting the costs in that aspect, but there are numerous environmental benefits that we will touch on here in a second as well.
So solar energy and net zero goals in the United States. I'm going to kind of go into this. Overview of net zero goals in the U.S. and their significance, how solar energy can play a pivotal role in achieving these goals, and the impact of solar energy on reducing the carbon footprint. So net zero, like I spoke about, it's kind of the goal we're trying to accomplish as a nation and as a state. And this is kind of summed up. Try to paraphrase it in the best way, and then I'll elaborate on it. But net zero goals refer to the commitment by governments and businesses to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions to zero or offset any emissions they do produce. The United States has set net zero emissions target for 2050. with the goal of achieving 50 to 52% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 compared to the 2005 levels. These goals are significant because they represent a commitment to addressing the global climate crisis and mitigating the worst impacts of climate change. When I talk to homeowners, friends, families, myself, I always talk about net zero. It kind of sums up everything when it comes to erasing our carbon footprint, the goal we're trying to meet as a state, as a country, as an individual. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot to go, but
Well,
it's going to be accomplished.
It starts with everyone kind of doing their own part. Obviously, we can't achieve net zero without the use of carbon emissions still. So there's going to be a time lapse where we still have to use diesel fuel. We still have to use all that stuff and emit a carbon footprint in order to get to net zero. So that's the goal, 2050. You know, we're headed towards that way, but it starts with the individual.
So sustainability of solar power. I know this is kind of, you talked about it a little bit more, and if you want to dive more in depth on this one.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have sustainability and solar power. The comparisons between fossil fuels and renewable resources, obviously a non-renewable resource is something that we have a finite amount of in the world. So, and with the use of fossil fuels, all that stuff, you get a lot of byproducts that causes harmful to people. You know, we hear stuff about in our water. We have a lot of ground to make up as far as that aspect. When you get into the end of life disposal of the solar panels, we are making ground right now. There are still, with the panels that we have, the whole panel can't be recycled. So there are parts of it that aren't recyclable, but we are moving towards a panel, and they are coming out now that 96% of the panel is actually recyclable. So that is something that will be a big thing going forward as panels reach the end of their lifespan.
Because it's been a big discussion. We run into it a lot. We always hear people go, "Hey, I really want to go solar, but you know, how do you dispose of these, and what is the method? I heard there's a lot of toxic chemicals in solar, things like that." Yeah, there's toxic chemicals in everything, but with moving towards a net zero goal as a country, we're going to have to go through some uphill battles from a recyclable standpoint. I mean, they are a 25 to 30 year panel, and a lot of the time people don't understand that if you get 30 years out of something before it has to be recycled, I mean, that's pretty good. And at a 96% efficiency rating right now on the new thin-based solar panels that are coming out, which are trying to be the standard, I think we're moving in the right direction. And I think it's not going to be an issue of discussion in the years to come.
So we have environmental factors, resource availability, kind of touched on that a little bit. Obviously, we only have a limited amount of resources in the world. So everyone kind of goes solar for their own specific reason. There's, you know, some people are trying to reap the tax benefits. Some people are trying to cut costs. Some people are, trying to do their part with the environment. So there are several different parts that you can contribute to. Some people really only go solar for personal benefit sometimes, but there are a lot of things that you can do to help your community, especially here in Boise, Idaho. We are lucky here. We do have geothermal energy. We do have hydroelectric energy, and that does a huge contribution to our current grid. But with everyone moving in here, we have big tech companies moving into this area. We will not always be able to use all of those resources as for just our grid. So we need to make up that ground in other areas such as solar farms, having battery capacities, all of that kind of stuff, just to help mitigate the strain on the grid. So, and then as far as jobs are concerned, if you're looking for a new job, I highly recommend you get into the energy industry, because it is probably, I would say tech and energy are probably the two fastest growing industries right now. I think there's a percentage, I can't remember what it is, but by the year 2050, there's a really high percentage that X amount of jobs are going to be just strictly in the energy industry. So I'll let you finish on that.
With renewable energy, just the job field, I'm always on Google. I'm always looking at things, and you read all these statistics, and if you look, it says I forgot the statistic you were just saying. It said something by 2050, 25 to 30% of jobs in America will have some relation to the renewable energy field, and that's insane. I mean, you talk about install techs, salesmen, repair, it's a whole other field and a whole other industry that's just growing right now. So if people are looking for jobs, renewable energy is definitely the future and a great job field to be in. I mean, I can't emphasize it enough. There's every day I hear of another position being created, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and to build on that too, with our resources and stuff available, you look at the supply and demand, right? So the cost of your utilities right now are never going to go back down. You're just going to keep going up. I mean, I think we just had a price hike on gas, natural gas, our just basic utilities for just living in your house. Everything's just going to continue to keep going up. And it's an opportunity to help mitigate that.
And then you kind of touched on this too with public health. Fossil fuels have a negative health consequence. We all know that. I mean, cardiovascular, we breathe things, our cars put emissions. There's a reason we're seeing EV chargers pop up all over the state. I know there was a segment earlier today. One of Sean's friends, he's starting up an EV charging thing, or I got to get more details, but it's huge. I know Idaho Power is looking in. We're trying to build EV chargers across the state. It's a problem, and we got to tackle it together. So this is a little bit more of the end of life disposal, if you want to go into that.
Yeah. So we have a slide coming up next after this one, but it's going to show the breakdown as far as the panels that used to be used versus the panels being used now. It's a thin based film. Has a semiconductor material on top of it, which allows for better efficiency of the panel and then more recyclable materials on it. So it's a monocrystalline panel. What that allows for is just more recyclable materials, better efficiency, longer life of the panel. And then in turn with all of that, it means that you have to recycle less material if it's lasting longer as well. So it's just technology is always getting better year over year, and we're excited to see where this industry is headed.
So it's kind of a breakdown of the thin film based PV panels, which are starting to become the standard. I mean, they're still out there. Manufacturing of solar panels is a very interesting business. I did not know the logistics side of solar until I got into it. There's port issues because there's solar manufacturers in all sorts of areas all over the world. And there's a lot of harmful chemicals actually being put in some solar panels by other companies that aren't even accepted to be. We can't even get them into the United States. And I've ran into issues with other companies, solar vendors that have told me, oh, we're having supply issues. And I go, what's going on? And they go, oh, well, we got this new panel out of, China, or we got this new panel out of, and we're having port issues. They're not getting through the port. And I go, okay, that's crazy. And then I start diving into it, and me and Andrew have kind of got up to speed on this, and it's all the problems they're putting in to these panels. And we're moving towards these thin film based panels, and you're seeing those quite a bit in the United States. A lot of HOAs, they're calling for black on black panels. If you drive around town and you guys see old solar panels, like most of the time I call them computer chip panels. They kind of look like computer chips, and those are they're kind of old school. They're still great and everything, but I mean, they're not going to be recycled as well, and a lot of other things. But like Andrew said, technology is advancing day by day. And for example, right here, you could see silicon is taken out of the original PV panels, and over here, we're running off 89% glass, and glass is one of the most recyclable materials. It's very, very easy to recycle. We're cutting down on the plastic over here on the silicon-based panels. We're cutting down on aluminum, and it's pretty self-explanatory. But the direction we're moving from a manufacturing standpoint in panels, inverters, and even the glass that's going inside these panels, it's remarkable. Day by day, it gets better. I geek out on this stuff, but it's a trip.
The cost of manufacturing panels is going down too. That was one thing kind of in the past why solar was more expensive. People the cost to manufacture panels, the technology was more expensive. Now it's more readily available. They are making advances where it is cheaper to make, and the efficiency is going up. So it is it's a great way off.
All right. Well, you want me to tackle this one? I can tackle
Yeah,
this
you
one.
can take one.
So solar energy in Idaho. Idaho's current status as a leader in terms of employing renewable resources, trends in residential installation, including available tax incentives, future plans to increase production capacity. So like Andrew was talking about, hydropower is huge in the state of Idaho. But there's a lot of people moving here, and that is a big problem. For example, I was told by multiple people, so I got to be careful with this, but if you guys out in Kuna, you guys know the new Facebook plant is being built out there. And I know there's like a hold and construction stuff right now, but technically Anderson Dam Ranch, which provides, I think, anywhere from like 5 to 8% of our hydropower here in the state of Idaho, that would be completely deleted due to how much power that plant will be taking up. So for example, the influx of people moving here and the businesses trying to pop up shop here, Facebook already put in a bid to actually build another plant. So that would be more renewable sources taken away. And us being a top 10 hydro state in the United States, we're going to have to find other renewable sources. Wind isn't that big of a thing here in Idaho. It's a very, very, very small fraction of our renewable source. Right now, solar and hydro is our bread and butter. You guys can drive down a mountain home. You guys are driving to Pocatello. You guys driving towards eastern Idaho, even up north. You'll see these solar farms popping up left and right. Those are solar projects. Those are just adding to the net zero goal, adding to our renewable percentage that we report to the government as a state to show that we're moving in this direction of 100% clean energy by 2045. But we're making progress. It's just the influx of people and these businesses that are moving up here. It's great. It's great for our economy. It's just from the aspect of our goals from a renewable net zero standpoint, it's hard to meet. We're going to have more people go solar individually on their homes. Utility companies are going to need to build more solar farms and even wind. I know wind's a small fraction, but it's technology in that field. It's being highly advanced day by day. I read things all the time. I've been offered to get into that industry, kind of stayed away from it because we're in Idaho and it's a small fraction. It's not that windy in Boise. It's more windy on the eastern part. But yeah, it's crazy with just, if you want to add.
Yeah, well, and wind is a great renewable resource as well. It's just the productivity, the energy that you'll yield from a wind turbine or whatever you want to call it. You won't get the same results as you would from a solar panel. You'll get more energy from that solar panel. It'd be higher efficiency. It's just, you're just going to get more productivity out of that solar panel than wind. So that's the main reason. I think you don't see a ton of them everywhere. You'll see them over, I'm sure you've been over to near like Pullman, Washington. I think they have a huge wind farm over there. But as far as if you take the same acreage of land, put a solar farm on it versus wind, you're going to get a lot more productivity out of that solar farm. So.
And I'll just read these off again, but you guys can drive downtown. You guys can see the banners on the state building and stuff. But Idaho's goal is to be 100% clean energy by 2045. And with some of these net zero goals I've been talking about, it's very achievable. It's just, it's going to be a team effort. Idaho Power has announced plans to significantly increase the renewable energy capacity, including the addition of more wind and solar power projects. They're popping up left and right. We get emails all the time from Idaho Power, from Rocky Mountain, Avista, of these projects that are happening. And it's wonderful. It's great. It's moving us in the direction I like to see. Several other smaller utilities and power providers in Idaho are also investing in renewable energy projects, such as geothermal plants. And with the smaller utilities, since we're on this page too, I said I was going to talk about this. So there's three major utility companies currently here. There's Rocky Mountain Power, there's Idaho Power, there's Avista, and there's a lot of smaller co-ops that are throughout the state. Some of these co-ops and some of these utility companies aren't even set up for solar. They don't even have like a net metering program. They don't. They're just rural co-ops and stuff like that. We've actually helped, 2 or 3 co-ops actually get the ability to kind of let their homeowners start going solar. Our last one was up in Lucille, Idaho, I think. But it's amazing with how many of the smaller companies are actually growing and starting to like take on solar because they're just small population cities. But for the most part, we're moving in the right direction. I can't say that enough, and it's awesome. All right, this is your battleground, Andrew. So,
all right, I'm the numbers guy. So we have so I'm sure, everyone here has heard about the federal tax credit, right? That 30%, they say, you see those ads online that says, hey, free solar, government solar, all this stuff. It's all, not true, right? Solar's not free. It's hard to find anything that's free nowadays.
And I don't want to interrupt you, but like this, I just love how you're going to go on this. I have employees, myself, we get phone calls all the time. Hey, we want to go solar. I go, well, first off, ma'am, sir, why do you want to go solar? What are you trying to benefit out of it? What are your goals? Well, it's free. And I heard I get a bunch of money. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. And you keep going.
So the way the federal tax credit works is it's not a tax deduction. It's a tax credit, and you can be eligible for 30% back through means of a credit. So it all depends on your tax liability. It depends on your own situation. Usually, if you get a tax return every year, there's a good chance that you probably won't be able to get anything on that tax credit. So that's one thing that's unfortunate about the solar industry. It's not always communicated clearly. Some people will say, hey, you're going to get this number right here. You're going to get it back on your tax return. Not true. It all depends on everyone's tax situation. And that number is the number that you see on the piece of paper. Say on average, it's about $8,000, something like that. That can be dispersed over 3 years. So that's a number that you can disperse. It's the same type deal with the Idaho tax deduction. So that's actually a deduction, 40% of the cost of the system. And it's so it's 20% each year, but then you can max out at $5,000 per year. So obviously if your system only costs $8,000, you're not going to get $20,000 back or even $5,000. In the tax deduction form. So, and that's an Idaho state income tax deduction.
Yeah, gosh, this stuff drives me nuts because I have to explain this every day. But it's kind of thrown us in a pickle. The incentives are great for solar. It's another push for people to go solar. And I can't say it enough. You got to incentivize people some way or another. The reason I went solar is, yeah, incentives are great, but I want to pay cheaper for my electricity. I want to invest in my own house. It's a very easy upgrade to do. Instead of doing a room addition, I get a 3 to 4% more of an appraisal value on my home by just adding solar. Cool, I'll do that. So that's one of the reasons I went solar. And also getting a Tesla here soon. Need to charge that. Don't want to pay more for electricity. There's a lot of reasons for it, but you got to incentivize them one way or other. But we run into this all the time. Just make sure you're with a reputable company. You look into it because we hear it all the time. I'll go over to someone's house and they'll show me some project from who knows, and I go, you're not getting $20,000 back, and your offset's wrong, and the tax incentive things, it drives me nuts because there's so much confusion in this field. And like you said with the scammy Facebook ads, free solar, it's not real. It's not real. And the affordability of solar has completely changed over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. If most companies do a zero upfront thing, therefore, for anybody who's living in the home is paying for the solar. If a homeowner is paying $200 and now they're paying $150 for solar, well, they're locked in to pay $150 till that system's paid off. They're getting the investment in their house, and they might put 10 grand towards their system, but when they move out of that home, they probably saved around $6 grand in electricity cost. So it's a great investment, and it's a great selling point for the next homeowner to walk into a home knowing that they're contributing to net zero. They're contributing to getting a solar system paying under the value of electricity that's currently being offered. And the list just goes on and on. the property tax exemption, I'll kind of go into that too. Most of the time, you do a room addition or you add value to your property, you're going to get taxed on it. Well, solar is a removable item. And in the state of Idaho, if you add solar to your house, you're not going to get taxed more. So it's a pretty good deal. Honestly, I think it's the best deal you could get for a quick appraisal on your house. Also, net metering, kind of going to net metering. I don't know if you kind of touched it, but net metering allows homeowners and businesses with solar systems to receive a credit for any excess electricity their system produces and feeds back into the grid. Idaho has a net metering policy that allows customers to receive a credit on their electricity bill, that excess power they generate. Now, did you want to touch on California with net metering, or?
Yeah, we can do that on the next slide. But basically, with California, every state has their own different net metering requirements or their own guidelines. So every utility is different. PG&E over in Portland is different than it is here. Even like Rocky Mountain Power is different than Idaho Power. So what we have here is we have a 1-to-1 credit system. And it's for every extra kilowatt hour you produce, it gets credited back to your account. So then during the day, your meter's essentially running backwards because you're not really using the power, you're generating it on site. And then overnight, during those peak hours, you're pulling from the power that you produce during the day. So really, that's kind of the goal, is to be net zero within your own home, contributing to net zero nationwide. But if you look at these net metering requirements are ever changing. Oh, yeah. So you have California that's just went to an NEM 3.0 program, meaning that every homeowner has to get a battery.
Long story short, everybody has to get a battery.
Everyone has to get a battery. And I don't know if you guys looked at the batteries. They're not super cheap. So that's why there's been, that's the one problem is it's the homeowners, the community working with the utilities, the solar providers working with the utilities to make sure that everyone's taken care of and continuously taken care of.
Yeah, net metering 3.0. That things are changing tremendously in California right now. The buyback rate is going down across the board. So, therefore, to make net metering make sense, almost every homeowner is going to have to have a battery. I think eventually, in just my personal opinion, in the direction we're going, I think a battery will be standard in a home in the United States. Probably, I don't want to jump the gun, but I'd say about 10 years away. I think it's going to be kind of a norm here in Idaho with a 1-to-1, and we don't have too many rolling blackouts and things like that, which in California during peak hours and stuff like that, they have rolling blackouts. Batteries make way more sense, but here, 1-to-1 ratio, don't really see blackouts. Batteries really aren't needed yet.
And as far as our net metering program goes, it's actually pretty good because it's kind of like you're exchanging $1 for $1 essentially, rather than them going to a buyback program where it's 25 cents on the dollar. So, I mean, if you have the solar system in your house, you're producing that energy. You don't always want to be compensated by that dollar amount, eventually, right? For a fraction of what you're producing it at, if that makes sense.
Because I have a project currently going on actually in California right now, and just with the buyback rate, how it would work, I mean, gosh, it's crazy. I think for the utility company, she's in Indio, California, so I think it's IDD Municipal, or what they were telling me is for every $1 extra, she gets back like 35 cents, which is insane. And then what's funny though, up here, all the excess power you generate as a homeowner, yes, it is a credit, but I mean, you could kind of do the math. Where do you think that power's going that you generate extra? It's probably being sold by the utility company to somebody else for more money. So it's great we're getting a 1-to-1 right now, but I really hope we never move into the buyback thing. I think it's ridiculous, because if I generate $1 of electricity and you want to give me 70 cents for it, and then you want to turn around and sell it to Oregon or sell it to Arizona or California for $1.50, I think that's kind of slimy. And that's another reason I personally went solar too. I just don't believe in some of the monopoly operations that are happening in the United States. You want to go into grid stability? Or I can. It's kind of, I kind of talked on this earlier. So, I mean, this is an easy one for me. So solar power and grid stability, how integration of solar power can lead to better grid stability, economic implications of using more reliable sources like wind, solar over traditional fossil fuels, the potential issues regarding battery storage solutions that make grid stability easier with increased use of renewables. So I kind of like have hit this a little bit going on early, but we have an issue with the influx of people moving here. I mean, I'm an ex-Californian. I don't want to say that, but a lot of people moving up here from the West. We just had COVID not too long ago, and the Texas was popular, Idaho was popular, Florida was popular, Utah was popular, and we're getting an influx of people, and that's putting a big factor on our grid, like I talked about earlier. So if we can't upgrade our infrastructure at the speed it needs to be upgraded, we're going to run into issues with stability of our grid. Therefore, things like a battery come into play. There's a reason I have a battery, because if power goes out, I got electricity. And then on top of that, during peak hours, if we ever did have a rolling blackout, I still have electricity, and I'm taking off that impact off the grid. So the influx of people moving to our state here and moving just in general to a lot of the most popular solar states is an issue. If you look right here, it's kind of weird. The East Coast, they just got their stuff dialed in. Good for them. But central United States and the western part of the United States, we are at an elevated risk for operating reserves. So during peak times, I mean, this has been a really weird winter and kind of a weird spring. Might have a hot summer. Last summer was hot. In California, I grew up in Southern California, where we would have rolling blackouts because everybody was cranking their air conditioner. So when everybody's cranking their air conditioner, that grid can't hold it. And that's when things like this are going to come into play. And these are going to be a major pivotal factor in going net zero and stopping the issue of this risk of grid issues. So this right here in the bottom right corner, this is probably at a small to medium size solar farm. And these are ginormous battery banks. And these battery banks kind of back the grid. They're kind of backing the grid, to make a long story short. So when things go south, or when they got to replace electricity in different areas and shoot things down the electrical highway in different areas, we can rely on these ginormous battery backup banks. Also, up top, these are just individual battery banks. You've probably seen the Tesla Powerwall, the LG wall, things like that. Those are just for individual households. And once again, that's those are two pivotal factors that I think are going to, make a big impact on net zero for an individual and as a state, country, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. And these batteries play a big role with these solar farms too that are coming up, just because electricity is relayed lifetime. So when you're producing your energy or it's coming from a solar farm, when the sun's in the sky, when the energy comes in, it's almost like a bell curve, right? So during the middle of the day, you're producing the most amount of energy. And then at night, when everyone's actually using their power, we're not producing any energy by means of solar. So that's where those batteries come in. I know that that plays a big role, because when everyone gets off work, everyone's watching Netflix, cooking, hanging out with family. That's when everyone's using all the power. And so we can save up power throughout the day, use it during those peak hours, and hopefully distribute it at a lower cost as well.
Well, there's a little summary of just kind of solar. And like I said, I just wanted to brush the surface with net zero in general and talk a little bit about, we are here in Idaho, and I like to talk about Idaho a lot, but as a country and as a state, moving towards these net zero goals, some of the things we have to do as a team to move in the right direction. I think solar has a major pivotal role in the next 30, 40 years to come with meeting these net zero goals. And we're really excited about it, and we're glad to be in this industry. And I can't stress it enough. If you ever want to get into any aspect of a side business or anything renewable energy, go in that field, because there are so many jobs being created, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
And one thing really quick before we open up for a few questions, one thing that we kind of realized, I'd say like almost 2 years ago now, that you can lump in a solar project with a brand new roof. And we've been able to help a lot of homeowners with getting a roof for about $60, $70 a month on top of what you're currently paying for electricity. So you're kind of utilizing the good solar financing rates, and you're getting two birds with one stone. So you're not paying for your electricity anymore. You're getting a brand new roof. You're only going to pay for that roof while you live underneath it. And that was kind of something that we figured out a little while ago. And we've been so busy doing what we're doing, and everyone has been happy with what we've been able to provide. So gonna give ourselves a little pat on the back for that.
Yeah, I can't. If you want, I've been noticing this trend too. If you ever want to see if the Fed's going to increase or anything. So when we got into the solar industry, there was a 0.5% interest.
It was 1.49.
It was a 149 then.
Yeah.
So I remember we had a 0.9 and then we went to a 149, and everyone was stressing that. Oh my God, interest rates are so low, everything's going up. Well, right now, when homeowners do an energy finance for their solar system, we're at a 359. Still pretty low. It's great, but we just got told we're probably going to a 399. So,
right.
And the Fed so whenever the green energy field, you ever hear interest rates in that field starting to jump, it's probably a sign other things are going to jump, because as of right now, the renewable energy field, I think, has the lowest financing rates across the board. Yeah,
definitely.
But I appreciate everybody who came out here. This is awesome. We're really happy to be here at Hack For It. This is so cool. And we geek out on solar. And if you guys have any questions, we'd love to answer them. So
cool. Oh, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was curious. Full disclosure, I'm a solar installer from over in Washington State. I was curious if you guys have access to any credit unions that will do like local solar loans. I know it's not going to be like those super low rates, but without dealer fees. Is that an option out here?
So yes and no. We've been actually kind of working on that right now. I know what you're saying with the dealer fee right now. If you want,
I guess I've actually heard of a couple of people that have done like a HELOC and then gotten solar with the HELOC, right? So that's something that I've heard of. Really, we go through our financer. We do have dealer fees, unfortunately. It's just like that with, even if you go to get a construction loan, they throw a dealer fee in there, right? So, that is just the unfortunate part of the business. We do work with different financiers to get lower dealer fees. So that is something that we are always trying to mitigate. But we haven't worked with anybody that has gone out and gotten a loan from, like, say, ICCU to get the solar system. Usually a lot of homeowners will, we do sell a decent amount of cash systems here and there too, but that is, does that answer your question kind of?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. That's awesome. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You hear the good leaps and the mosaics and 37% dealer fees.
Right.
Yeah. Not that cool.
Yeah.
We're lately, actually, we're in our partner company. We're in the process of talking to certain banks right now, and we're talking with the top 10 banks. And we're trying to find a way to get that just cut out. And it's
mm-hmm.
It's been our life the last actually like 8 weeks. We've been flying back and forth and trying to do some bank deals. So it's
it would pretty much be able to make us exclusive as far as pricing goes compared to anybody else. Without getting into too much detail, but it's that is a challenge that we do have, and that is something that we want to mitigate going forward, because we do really believe in this industry. We want it to keep growing, but when there are stuff like that, we want to keep going the right direction without deterring people from doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey guys, just wanted to thank you for coming out here. I'm also in the solar industry, and I just think it's an amazing industry to be in. It really is the way of the future. Like, I get home, I park my electric car, I plug it in. It's literally charging from the sun. Like, I'm not paying gas bills. It's great. And it is a growing field. I just wanted to add to that. We're always looking for new hires, like electrical engineer for creating one lines. and it's a good field to be in. It pays well. We started with 4 people 6-7 years ago, and we have over 20 people installing now. And it's great. I was curious, is Idaho doing anything for future solar like California is? Like, I know California has a thing where like new houses have to be pre-wired for solar at least, and stuff like that. And so
Yeah.
I was just curious if Idaho.
I know. Are you technically pretty much saying, do you think, is Idaho Power going to you think there's going to be utility companies changing up the requirements with going solar?
No, I think you're talking about like for new builds, right? Houses
Right,
being
yeah.
like
Building.
ready to go
Yeah,
solar
yeah.
in
Right.
Idaho specifically, though.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not quite sure on that exactly. I know in other states that is something that is being pushed big time. And that would be great if we could do that here, just because Idaho is a top 10 state for sun exposure.
As
So-
of right now, I only know one subdivision. Actually, it was I think it was about 25 houses built in Avamore area, like it's the new development up there. And they actually did pre-wire those for solar, but they had a deal with a local installer in town that very reputable, great company. And that owner got a deal with that builder, and they actually did that. But from a requirement standpoint, I think that would be great going forward from a new construction standpoint. I think that's the way we need to head. And with doing all these solar projects all around the state, it just makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, my question was with the high demand for lithium now for batteries, how has that impacted your business?
So that's one kind of I was going to touch into that a little bit with when I was talking about like port issues and material issues. It is a major problem right now. I wasn't going to dive into this, but mining for this stuff, that's another issue we got to approach, because there needs to be safe practices. There's things going on, but gosh, I mean, I could sit here and talk all day on that. But it hasn't really affected us from a supply chain aspect, from getting panels, things like that, inverters. I knew a guy for 20 years, kind of got me into the solar industry, and proudly enough, our source is actually manufactured. We're one of the only technically solar vendors in the United States assembling our panels in Texas, therefore United States made, yada, yada, yada. But the outsourcing, the lithium mining and things like that right now, it's an issue for other companies that I've heard. That is the port issues and the supply chain issues. It is pretty crucial, I've heard, and it's kind of made some other companies fold. We're okay, but I just hope that doesn't become an issue in the future.
I'd say a year ago, it was more of an issue. It seemed like a year ago, we kind of we had some issues trying to get panels in and stuff like that. But as of recent, it's kind of like we don't have any shortages as far as the panels go.
And to touch on that though, like with the practices of the lithium mining and everything, you're talking about you're talking about batteries. Okay. So so if we go into the battery thing, I was actually going to go into this with batteries. The California supply chain issue, I think that's going to be, I was talking to him earlier. I'm like, what are we going to look like in a year with batteries? Because almost every homeowner in California is going to have to get a battery if they go solar, starting in April. I'm getting word through the grapevine that there's not going to be an issue, and there's not going to be a supply chain issue, and we're going to have plenty of batteries and things like that. I kind of call BS, because there's 50 plus million people living in California. There's 3 million in Idaho, maybe. I don't. And I think it's going to be an issue, in my personal opinion. Yeah, it's gonna be. There's just a lot of batteries that are gonna be going in homes. With this many people right now, with net metering 3.0 happening, people are rapidly going solar, like left and right in California. We're available to do solar in 36 states right now, and our people out in California, they're on fire. Well, there's a lot of contracts signed, and that's a lot of batteries. So, we'll see in a year from now, to be honest with you.
It kind of follows the lines of like supply and demand though too. That's why a battery is expensive, because of one, you're getting the lithium in one way or another, and it's not always financially, it makes most sense to get a battery. It all depends on your situation, but I think that's probably the big reason why, though, is supply and demand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome, guys. If you have any more questions for Austin, definitely come out. I'm sure they'll be hanging out here.
Yeah, we'll be here.
And yeah, thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate
guys.
it.